Now. Okay, good evening. I'm going to call the April 14th, 2024 agenda meeting to order. I'm present. Councilmember Brennan, Councilmember De La Rada, Councilmember McPartland, Councilmember Moskowitz, Town Attorney Finnan, other department heads who are present, Eric Amberger, Seth Goldstein, Elizabeth Greenwood, Janet Wynn, Chief Koshin, Michelle Martinelli, Lori Peretti, Laura Robertson, Ray Smith, Matt Yetto. Okay, before moving on, we wish to respectfully acknowledge that Niskayuna is on the traditional lands of the Kanikihaka and the Mahikanac peoples, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the peoples who have stewarded this land throughout generations. Okay, moving on to business. We'll start with the Public Works Committee, Water, Sewer, and Engineering.
Okay, the first item is a resolution to authorize an outside user agreement, a sewer user agreement for 2804 Aqueduct Road. We've been working back and forth with this property owner, and all the paperwork is in, and I'd like to move forward with this connection. The next item is a tentative resolution for an outside user agreement for 2845 Aqueduct Road. I don't think we quite have all the information we need, so this may have to wait till next month. Same with the next two items. The fence easement agreement for 948 Douglas Court and the fence easement agreement for 905 Union Street. We're still waiting to get some of the final information for those, so we'll have to push those to next month. The next one is a resolution to permanently appoint Dan Bolke as a senior engineer in the Water and Sewer and Engineering Department. Dan passed his civil service test after being with us for well over a year now. I'm very happy with him, and I'd love to keep him employed with the town of Niskayuna. So just need the resolution to go ahead and appoint him permanently. Number 6 is a resolution to appoint interns in the engineering department. Every year we try to get 1 or 2, sometimes 3 even, interns to work in the engineering department. We've had bad luck in the last 2 or 3 years. COVID sort of put a knock into the program, but I was approached by 2 town residents who are currently in school for an engineering track. One is going to Clarkson, and the other one I believe is moving to SUNY Albany. But I've done the interviews, and I'm very happy with both candidates. And I have plenty of work for them to do with all the special projects we have going on, including mapping and drainage analysis as part of our townwide drainage study. So I'd like to move forward with that if possible. And we do have money budgeted for interns.
That's very encouraging. You got to, because you had some years you couldn't find any.
Yeah, we were sort of accepting anyone with even a slight interest in engineering. So these are both engineering students. So.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And sometimes they come back,
I do work
summers.
right now with a contractor who was an intern with us 10 years ago.
That's great, man.
And it's great. It's great connections, and it was great. We get a lot of work out of them, and they also learn a lot.
Good.
And for the sake of transparency, I want everyone to know that one of those interns who interviewed with Matt is my son. He is going to be majoring in environmental engineering, or at least minoring in it. He's taken calculus. He's passed out of Calc 1 and Calc 2. He's received a A in calculus, a B plus in geology, and B plus in chemistry. He knows the software that the engineering department already uses. And so I want, for full transparency, everyone to know that he's a highly qualified candidate, and he applied and he went through the interview process like the other intern. And if anyone has any questions or comments, I invite them now, because I wouldn't want anyone to suspect there's nepotism or inappropriate process.
Oh, we've had this occur before. We've had other supervisors, town board members, have people in their families do internships and or summer jobs with the town. And as you said, they go through the interview process just like any other candidate. So I don't see any issue with that.
Councilmember Moskowitz.
I know it's happened in the past, as Councilman McPartlin said. Do we know, though, if it is in compliance with the town's nepotism policy? Or
As long as it's noted and I'm not directly supervising the individual, then it doesn't disqualify the individual. And when we vote on it, I will be abstaining from the vote in order to ensure that it is not an ethics violation. Is there anything else we want to explain there or add to that? And again, just being very open, transparent, and honest. Nothing to hide.
And the other applicant is David Fields. He's a Clarkson. He's going to be he's a freshman, currently a freshman at Clarkson, studying environmental engineering.
I think Michael played baseball with him years
Yes.
ago.
Yeah,
They know each other. Okay. Again, not nepotism. They just played ball together
No,
like
but-
6 years ago when they
but
were
he-
like 10.
He came to me and asked if there was anything that we were going to be offering, and I jumped at the opportunity because he's a very good
Okay.
resident, but also to have someone that is taking the initiative to come to ask us, showing the professionalism to try to do something more than just mow lawns for the summer, which is great.
Nothing wrong with that. We can use those kind of people
I did
that
that-
are not
I
in
did
the
that in
highway
college.
department. And
Nope.
we put those people to work in our parks and highway also.
Okay, so the next resolution is a resolution to award a contract for the purchase of insertion valve equipment. We did have a bid opening last week. This is equipment that allows us to cut into a live water main and insert a valve without turning water off to the area. We have a lot of older pipes in Old Niskuna where the pipe is in great shape. However, they didn't install valves like we do now. So there's large areas of the town that if we had to turn off to do a repair, we were shutting off hundreds of houses. So by using this equipment, and instead of contracting it out, if we buy the equipment ourselves, we can basically pay for itself within a couple of years. So we did do a bid opening, and the amount is $71,727. That's for the valve. It's for the equipment and I believe 4 valves.
That was not included in what you sent over to me earlier. So can you just make sure I have all that information?
Yes, I think that was why there was that double resolution.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is this in your budget for capital equipment expenditures? Thank you.
It actually, the water distribution repair and replacement line, this counts for that because it's insertion of valves that help us to extend the life of our pipe.
Excellent.
The next one is it was a resolution that was mentioned a couple months ago, and
The amendment?
yes, yeah. So it's an amendment to Resolution 2024-77. We awarded a contract to purchase a pump for one of the pump stations. From the time that we awarded the contract to the time that we went to place the order, models changed and the price went up by $110. So the resolution would not allow us to purchase it. So we have to modify the resolution to get us from $13,000 to $13,110. It's still below the second quote that we received for that. Number 9, we're still interviewing, but I won't have a name because we have so many applicants and just trying to work through them all. 10 is a resolution to appoint a plant operator. Nick Palesci has been working with the town for a few years. He recently passed and received his New York State Department of Health license to be a water plant operator. He's currently a trainee, so I would like to move him from the trainee position to the operator position. And 11, I have one additional one. I think it was listed as a tentative on the agenda, is a resolution to hire a contractor to install spray foam insulation at the water treatment plant at a cost of $8,765.
Did you say that was tentative or?
No,
Is
it's not.
it-
It's not. Now it's
Now it's-
it's a good resolution.
Okay.
Any questions?
How big of an area is that they're insulating about?
It's the control room. I don't know the square footage. It's inside the recently upgraded filter building at the plant. We're insulating the walls before we close them in to create a vapor barrier from the chlorine gas to keep it from causing corrosion on the new controls. So it's, I can't, it's not a standard size. It's sort of unique, but. Yep, thank you. Any questions? We're good? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Highway, Parks, and Recreation.
Madam Supervisor, if I may,
Yes.
really quickly, I just looked at the Niskuna Town Code, section 17-4, the Code of Ethics, subsection A discusses the general prohibition for such applications, and it would just require under subsection, I think this would answer Councilman Moskowitz's question, is as long as there's disclosure, there would just be the require of a recusal from voting. That's under subsection C. So as long as you wouldn't vote on it, that would be fine because it's been disclosed.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Smith, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Number 12 is a resolution to hire seasonal workers in highway department. We got most of the kids back that we had last year, so good to see them return. And the good part of that is they learned last year, so they know the routine. So they should come in and be seamless going to work. That's it for me. Thank you.
Hello. Number 13 is a resolution to authorize the submittal of a Niskuna Community Foundation grant. This is a grant that we apply for every year and have been extremely successful. So we're hoping for the same result this year. And actually the due date is tomorrow. So, and number 14 is a resolution to hire seasonal employees in the Office of Community Programs. And this will be for our spring soccer referees. Anybody have any questions? Oh, thank you.
Okay, moving on to Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and the Environmental Conservation Committee. Ms. Robertson?
So number 15 is the tentative resolution to amend the 2024 town designated engineer rates due to a company name change. Tried to get it on the last meeting. Had it almost ready, but not quite in time. So that one is written and ready to go. And number 16 is a resolution authorizing a concept design from Weston and Sampson for a section of sidewalk. I can actually pull this one. I talked to Elena prior to the meeting. I was going to mention it finance, but finance was very full. I did not realize that $6,500 or less for professional services does not require town board approval. And this contract is $6,000. So I brought it to the Economic Development Committee meeting for their review, and I will give written notice to the town board, but I believe that we can keep one thing off of your plate. And so I'll just make sure that you guys get all of that notice. And it's very exciting because we have outstanding escrow that we took for a subdivision quite a while ago that we have had difficulty spending because it just wasn't enough to do the sidewalk. And in fact, it wasn't even enough to do the engineered drawing. So at our committee meeting, we had a great idea, and that is going to be a concept drawing that we can submit for grants to fund the sidewalk. So Weston and Sampson can put together concept drawings, cost estimates, and make everything ready for us to go to try and get the funding to actually build the sidewalk. $6,000, and we're hoping to have that by summer, I would expect. Oops, my phone went black. Hold on. Number 17 is a tentative resolution to accept a linkage study grant through the Capital Region Transportation Council. We talked about this a lot. We're all very excited about it. This is our big planning study for Route 7. If I can get the contract from Capital Region Transportation Council, then we'll put it on, but we have a very short turnaround. So this may end up carrying over to the next month too. That's why it's tentative. I will get it to you as soon as I get it. And I keep putting it on the agenda because I want us to be able to do it as soon as possible. And then 18 is a resolution integrating the Town Historical Committee into the Town's Historic Preservation Committee. Again, discussed that one a lot. Just didn't manage to eke it on to the last meeting, so that one is ready to go. If anybody has any questions on that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, police and public safety.
Good evening, everyone. Number 19 is a resolution to authorize the purchase of 2 new police vehicles. These are budgeted for in the 2024 budget cycle. The mini bid came out to $88,938, and they are Ford Explorers, which will be a continuance of what we currently use. Number 20 is a resolution to disestablish petty cash funds in the Niskuna Police Department. This is something operationally that's going to help me because I don't need cash anymore because we have purchasing cards. And with cash comes audits, tracking, policies, and other things. So by disestablishing this, it's just going to make my life a little bit easier, and we don't need that money sort of being a part of the police department any further. Does anybody have any questions? Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chief Goshen. Okay, and wrapping up with Finance and General Government Committee.
Good evening. Number 21 is no longer tentative. It's a resolution to recertify the standard workday and reporting for elected and appointed officials. Number 22 is a tentative resolution to appoint members to the Elected Officials Compensation Study Committee. Still waiting on the last name for that. Number 23, a resolution to approve one budgetary modification, as mentioned earlier. 24 is a tentative resolution to accept the court process audit if that's completed on time. To do that, otherwise we'll roll that into the following month. 25 is a resolution to authorize the supervisor to enter into contracts for the purchase of fireworks for the Niska Day celebrations. And finally, 26 is a resolution to accept lands from the state, formerly known as the Mohawk River State Park. Are there any questions? Thank you.
At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? We stand adjourned, and we will move into the special board meeting where residents will have an opportunity to share during privilege of the floor. Good. Seth, will you let me know when I'm all set? I'm good. Okay. All right. Good evening. I'm going to call the April 16th special meeting of the town board to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Present.
Councilmember Delarada.
Here.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Councilmember Brennan. Here. Supervisor Puccioni.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, we'd like to respectfully acknowledge that Niskuna is on the traditional lands of the Kanikihaka and the Mahikanauk peoples, past and present, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the peoples who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We're going to quickly vote on one resolution because if our town attorney has to leave during privilege of the floor, then that will be okay for her to do. And we have childcare, parenting, things that have to happen. So I want to make sure that everyone is taken care of as best as possible. So let's quickly vote on the resolution 2024-103 sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing individuals to the Board of Assessment Review.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Now we'll open up the floor we'll open the floor to residents for privilege of the floor. I recognize this is a little bit of a different process. Usually people share their interest with the clerk and we take a list. If you come up, you can just state your name. If you want to state your address, you can. If not, we could take a note of it. Some people don't like to have their address broadcasted for everyone to hear because this is recorded and posted online. And so we do have a 3-minute time limit. We'll have the light on. Seth, is it on? Okay, thank you, sir. We encourage you to stay within the time limit so everyone can have an opportunity to speak. And again, if you want to have a follow-up conversation, please contact myself or my administrative assistant, and we will follow up with you. Okay, the floor is now open.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stefan Kutsakis. Spoke with Jamie earlier today. Pretty much like most folks here, I'm here about the water bill. And I can probably safely say we're here because of the sticker shock, as Jamie mentioned earlier. One of the things I heard in the presentation earlier was that we have the sewer and water was removed off of the property tax bill. And a portion of it was still back. Okay, when I looked at my 2022 and 2023 bill, I noticed my bill went down $400. My water bill on a 6-month basis is roughly 120, no more than 120, maybe 118, 116, it varies. So that was $240 a year. Plus that $400 that came down off my property bill, I expected somewhere in a range of $650, which I think I would have accepted as acceptable. I just got my bill right now that shows my bill as being $485, which is almost $1,000 now. That's a $350 raise, 33% hike in my water and sewer. My usage has been pretty consistent. Not much has changed, like, as I mentioned. My water bill has been $120 every 6 months. I don't understand why this one went up. I'm in District 1. And I think what I want to bring back, I noticed that in the rates too, that in District 1, we're, as we showed, about 150. In Sewer 6, it's like 70. I don't know why the board doesn't consider blending it all, because it seems like the residents in District 1 really got hit hard. A lot. I've seen some of my neighbors said they've got 5 people in their household. A lot of little kids. I'm sure they're taking a lot of baths. It's just me. My daughter is away at school. 3 months from September, October, November, and December. She's away at school. It's only me. I don't know how my bill came in at $485 when his came in at $350. Okay, there is a huge disparity. Someone I spoke to at the Broken Inn the other night, she was working over there. She showed me her water bill from her previous one, 161. Her latest one said 610. So there's a lot of disparity. When I go back and look at some of the slides, one important slide that was not shown tonight was, for the last 6 years, there was a slide in there that showed the water revenues for the last 6 years, all in the red. They showed District 1, Sewer 1, mainly in the black every single year. That is where I am, Sewer District 1. All in the black pretty much every single year for the last 6 years. Sewer District 6 was in the red heavily, 200,000, 300,000. So under the old format, Sewer District 1 was breaking even and making money for the town. Sewer District 6 was really deeply in the red. So I don't know how the shift came, all this extra cost is now seems to be on District 1. And the more I look at it, it still does not make sense. I go back to the rates. I realize we're City of Schenectady, but we are all Niskayuna. And District 6 is half the cost with $1 less per 1,000 gallons used. That is a tremendous amount. First of all, I don't even know what District 6 is because no one seems to identify what District 6 is. I'm assuming District 1 is probably west of Balltown Road because we're closer to Schenectady. and everyone else on this side of Balltown Road is District 6? I don't know. No one has really explained that to me. But it just seems like the cost that I have seen on my bill, a 30% hike, as pretty much, I'm living in my house, but more, like I said, my daughter's off to school, and she might come home on a weekend. But other than that, she comes home like Columbus Day and Thanksgiving. There's those breaks for a weekend. I don't think I'm using on average about 220 gallons of water a day. And I talked to Jamie about this earlier. We're going to look into it, take a look at my water meter, and find out what's going on. And in the past, I have never noticed it because I thought it was manageable at $120 every 6 months. I didn't really pay much attention as to consumption. But when this bill came out, it was sticker shock. It seriously was sticker shock. I just don't know. I think if you took all the households that we have out there and figured in what the revenue is going to be collected, I just don't see this District 1. Right now we are in the black over the last 5-6 years, as it showed in one of those slides. How much more is that going to be way over? And where is District 6? I still don't see enough comparisons, enough proof to show that District 1 should be heavily burdened with this cost. It just seems like a shift happened somewhere, and it just does not seem right. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Roselle Shannon. I live on Greens Farm Road. I spent 25 years as a legal and legislative analyst, but right now I run a medical foundation. I don't really want to address the ridiculous bills that we've all received. I would like to look at the legal regulatory authority that governs the water department to extract a fixed service such as sewer from the service under the New York State Public Works law defines snow removal, sewer, fixed infrastructure, water bill separate under the New York State Public Works law. What is a water bill? It is to be assessed based on usage. That's it. Water bill is based on gallon usage. The average in New York State is $3,000 a month. The average in the country is close to that. So if you factor that in and you take the average amount, no one's 6-month bill should really be over $240 unless they have extreme usage, have 7 people, and you can actually look at the meters. But the funny thing is we have replaced meters, so you can't compare. You can't compare because it was set to 0. So how did you assess the gallon usage for each person? I'm one person, like Jason just said, and I live in a condo, and I paid $144, and now I'm $390, and I'm gone 3 months a year. And by the way, I don't know if anyone knows this, but on the bill, which has never been explained, I've been here for 24 years, it says minimum $9,140, right? And there's a minimum. Do you know why it says that? Because if you're below it, what's the answer? What if you're below 9,000? You're exempt, 0. You pay none. So those of you who have families, or some woman posted in this unit next door, her mother died, nobody's using the water, she just flushes the toilet, those gallons are definitely under 9,000. She deserves a refund. But that's never been told to anyone about the minimum usage and why it says minimum and it does not say below that you do not have to pay. That's New York State law. It's New York State Public Works law. This is my job. This is what I did. The assessment should be on usage. It needs to be, you can't mix, if you're going to put sewer in with water, is snow removal going to be added? Because I mean, we could stretch snow to water, right? I mean, comes from the water. It just seems to me like if this was going to be done, there should have been an open public forum where you would discuss how you would change it, and we would be allowed to provide feedback at the time and discuss. I mean, if the 7,000 families in this unit each gave $125 more a year, just a year, and most of ours are up $300-400, that's $1 million. Why does our water department need $1 million surplus? I don't understand it. I have a doctorate degree, but it's not in mathematics. But if there is somebody who's strong in mathematics, I'd like to know what the factorial numbers are that calculate single person usage going up 423%, because it's not apples and oranges. And if there isn't a mathematical calculation, then there has to be software that the water department manages that reads the meters and calculates it. And gee, maybe there's something wrong in that formula, because all things are not equal. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joseph Yeakel. I live on Roman Ave in Niskayuna. While I appreciate the presentation that was shown here, that presentation really wasn't helpful for all the people in this room because there was no reference point to explain to them what that current bill looks like versus what they would have paid. And to the gentleman that spoke first, the reason why your bill and everybody else's bill is going up so far and so high is because the town modified the rate design with three important aspects. The first one is you changed the residential minimum price. The second thing is that you changed the minimum usage, and I'll get back to that in a minute, because that's the linchpin to most of the problem that's going on here. And the third thing is that you changed the pricing for the minimal usage, or for the fee per 1,000 gallons. And the other thing that the town did, what the controller did, was modify the calculation on how that rate design was formulated. The way the rate design works right now is anything over the minimum usage fee is multiplied by the cost per 1,000 gallons. So just to give folks an idea of what's happened, over the last 4 years, the town has decreased the minimum usage value for sewer from 25,000 gallons down to 14,000 gallons. That's a 48% decrease in the minimum usage. What that means for all of you folks out here is if you were using 20,000 gallons of water in the past, you were a minimum use user. You're now beyond that. And so that delta, that difference between the 14,000 gallons and what you're now using, 21,000, is now multiplied by a higher factor in the cost. So that's one thing that's happened. The other thing that changed in this rate design calculation is that you've added a minimum, a $79 and a $78 minimum. That's on top of the minimum, the cost per 1,000 gallons. So somebody before that was using 9,000 gallons of water was only paying in the past $64.47 for sewer, and on water they were paying $30. Now, if you're using that 9,000 gallons, you're getting hit with a $78 fee right off the bat as a minimum use, and you're being charged for water $4.40 per gallon for that 9,000 gallons, which is about another $40 or $50. That's the perversion that's going on with this rate design. I know a little bit about rate design because I was the chief of public policy at the Public Service Commission, and we regulated water. I know how rate design works. There's three things that happen in here. You changed that minimum use, you dropped the minimum value as a user, and you also raised the price. Just to give you an idea of what's happened here, on Sewer District 6, you increased by almost 23% the res minimum from $64.47 to $79. You increased the rate per 1,000 gallons from $3.07 to $3.55. That's almost a 16% increase. And you dropped the minimum use from 14,000 to 14,235 to from 21,000. That's a 32% drop. So I know the controller can tell us prior to this rate design change being implemented, how many residents in this unit were minimum use users? And I'll just throw a number out there. If the number was 2,000 that were minimum use based on the old 21,000, under this drop to 14,000, you've probably lost 30% of those people that are no longer considered minimum users, which means they all get hammered with that $79 fee plus the differential on the increased pricing. This was a screwed up rate design, and it never ever should have been implemented in one billing cycle. That's exactly why these people are getting hit with hundreds and hundreds of dollars of rate increases. I did a calculation on what my cost would have been had we left this under the old rate design for my bill. I paid According to the new rate design, $278 for my water and sewer. Under the old plan, the old formulation, I would have paid $164. The reason why I'm paying so much more is because I'm now paying that minimal rate. My cost per 1,000 gallons has gone up, and the delta between what the minimum use is today versus what it was in the old design has been dropped by thousands of gallons. Every one of you people got nailed with the exact same thing. The math works out fine in those examples you're showing. It's not about if the math works out fine. You can plug any type of an input into a rate design, and you'll get the right answer out of it. The problem is you modified everything that were the inputs. The minimum use, you modified the gallons, you modified the pricing. All these things, 15% here, 50% there, 30% here, have all compounded one another. That's why these bills are sky high. Did nobody do any modeling? Did nobody ask the question, if we change our minimum use from 21,000 gallons down to 14,000, how many households is that going to affect? How many will that throw into an excessive use situation? Did anybody ask a question like that? Did anybody say, where are we coming up with 440 for a price versus 307? Looking at just that one thing, it's a 43% increase in the cost per 1,000 gallons. That's huge when you're talking about households that are using 20, 30,000 gallons of water, especially when you've dropped their minimum use to 14,000 gallons. You're billing them on that delta of 16, 18, 20,000 gallons at a higher rate. So this was not a well thought out plan. The controller may know her numbers, but this input and the way you change this calculation has basically screwed the entire township here in one billing cycle. This should have been phased in maybe over 3 to 5 years, because you knew that this problem had been going on for years, as you've said with this presentation. Doing nothing at all wouldn't have put us in any worse situation for the next billing cycle, but you could have just done one thing. You could have upped just a little bit that cost per 1,000 gallons and done nothing to the minimum usage and done nothing to the minimum rate, and you still would have seen an increase in revenue simply by changing one input. But you didn't change one input, you changed 3, and then you changed the formula. So that's the problem. That's what needs to be resolved. And delaying people's payments from May until June to solve this is not the answer. The rate design is flawed and it needs to be fixed. Thank you.
That was a great job. Hi, my name is Brett Hudson. I live over on Niskayuna Drive, and I'm honestly amazed because of how this came through. Friday, I came here to the office, and everyone was leaving. Everyone had their briefcase, and everyone was getting out of here because I thought there was a mistake on the bill. I have a bill for $975.25, and I have 3 children. It's me and my wife. I don't have a pool. I don't water the lawn. It rained all last summer. And I'm really honestly amazed, and I'm not the only one. I'm amazed that every one of you approved something that affects working families. We're the highest taxed area in the capital region for the most part, right? We have a great community, but you have a lot of working families, elderly, people on fixed incomes that are just trying to have a nice neighborhood to live in that can enjoy the amenities we have. When I get a bill for $975 on a house it was older, like a lot of houses in old Niskayuna. I was a cable man for a lot of years. And I remember as a technician going into everybody's houses in Niskayuna. I was a Schenectady technician. And I remember all the old bathrooms, all the old appliances, these things weren't fixed. Some of them over time would get upgraded here and there and stuff, but people didn't really worry about it because they were never notified. Hey, we have to fix this. When Friday comes, we get the bill. Afterwards, I see everyone leaving. I come back on Monday as well. No one's here. There wasn't anybody here Monday morning. I dropped my son off at high school, and I came over here. Well, the parking lot's empty. I was surprised. I was like, what? That's crazy. I had to go do a couple things. I came back. There wasn't anyone around. And it was so strangely suspiciously quiet when I came into the building. Everyone was like, ugh. So, I asked for people. I did ask for people. I saw Mr. Moskowitz in the parking lot, and I was talking to him for quite some time. And thank you for giving me all that time. But it's something. Sunday I went out. I bought 2 new toilets. I have a 5-year-old that sometimes with our sticky handles doesn't always lift up the handle when he's using it. You know, same thing with my 2 teenagers. So for a household where I'm dirty. I didn't dress up nice because I came home from work. I left work early. I work downtown. Okay. For people that are working hard to pay the taxes, to try to keep their yard nice, to try to keep good relations with their neighbors and do all the things, to fix up old houses that are all over Niskayuna. You know, I'm amazed that it got this far. And I saw your interview with Times Union and ABC. You know, I realize you say, hey, it's okay. I pay $300 something. And you have your children and your family, all of you. I have 3 children. I pay the taxes on time. The next day, typically after I get the bill, me and my wife, we take portions of our check to make sure our taxes are taken care of in our bills. Our homeowners insurance has gone up $700 in 2 years. Grocery charges have spiked by hundreds. Electricity, gas, natural gas, everything has climbed up to a point that it's harder and harder and harder for working class families, seniors, to keep going. I bought 2 toilets now, like I said, on Sunday. Those are in. I'm hoping that'll help. I realize I need to watch my water usage. Maybe my son can't take a bath every single night that he wants to. I don't know. It's kind of sad. 5-year-old that likes to play with boats in the water, you know, but I realize we have to do something. But to find out, we get a month extension on something that should have been planned for, that should have been looked at, you know, from the beginning. Not just the average increase would be $63 for the average family. Apparently, I'm not the average family. I have heard of other families that have $1,600 bills, $1,200 bills, $800 bills. People that were paying in the you know, $80 a month are now paying $400 a month. Our waitress at the Broken Inn, everybody at the Broken Inn, we had made a comment to our waitress. You know, this is a local business. They have to pay water, I believe, right? They all said, oh, we didn't open our mail yet. People started calling. They said, hey, you know, what's my bill? They called their daughter. Well, I'm not home yet. 5 minutes later, the daughter comes home. She's calling the mother. This is a shock to a community, the highest taxed community around. And to add more, you know, fuel to the fire, it's disheartening. And the fact that all of you did that to every community member here and around is pretty disheartening. That's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry for everything, guys. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Tom Marcucci. I'm a Niskayuna resident. Just to add to that, it's hard to follow one gentleman. That was pretty damn impressive. The discrepancies in the bills that I've noticed, I've received a bunch of emails from friends and neighbors. One to point out, I don't know if you've noticed this on your bill, the usage period. I've seen them all over the place. So mine happened to be from July to January. One in particular for a friend of mine, hers was October to January. Mine doubled. My bill doubled from $136 doubled. Hers was $52.29 last. Her current bill is $512.98. Now, she has a consumption of her family, which is around the same as mine right now, since all my kids are out of the house. 43,250 gallons from October to January. What is that. That's not a meter problem. There's a major flaw. So I don't know what everybody else is, but it's definitely, y'all are going to be busy. And based on all the fixed incomes and whatnot, and to touch on one of my fellow techs there, he's a cable guy. Can I real quick get off the subject and find out if what's the plan for 5G? What's going on with the infrastructure? I'm former Verizon. It drives me nuts to see the coils of fiber up on the poles. If y'all want me to climb up and fix it, I'd be happy to. So I would really like to get some of these fixed income elderly off of the franchise fees and getting hit with that bill, because that's a surprise. That's like a water bill every month, for them. So if somebody can fix that or get ahead of that, it'd be great. It's been long overdue. And if the controller or somebody could add a definition or like what is debt service? I don't know what debt service means. I don't know what the sewer 1 to 6 is. So it looks like it lent toward the city in Niskayuna. I'm not exactly sure how that works. But ideally, the usage period, if you all can look at that, how much you're using. I mean, all of my kids are out. And I was barely home this year, traveling and taking care of multiple families in 4 states. So for me to go to use 10,000 gallons of a difference, I wasn't home. And all of my plumbing is spot on. I do it myself. It's perfect. So there's no running toilets. The sink's not on, and nobody's coming into my house because I'm locked down with surveillance. So I don't know how else. And my daughter hasn't done extra laundry for her 2 children, popping in to visit. So we need to definitely fix this. I appreciate your attention.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marta Ozashik. I want to thank my seatmate there. I was really hoping that someone was going to come in here with that kind of expertise. And had my husband, the professor, been here tonight, he probably would have brought graphs. But I'm not that person. I haven't been to a town board meeting in many, many, many years. But something about this just broke my heart. This broke my heart to see people on next door talking about bills that they just cannot pay. I'm really lucky. I had a huge increase, but I can pay it. I want to thank all of you for being in public service in these terrible times, especially post-pandemic, when nobody appreciates public servants anymore. I have tremendous affection for this town. I've lived here for 22 years, raised my kids here. I have exceptional affection for water and sewer, particularly because my son worked there for many summers, painting hydrants, driving the truck, mowing lawns. His other cool job was filming these meetings, okay? Because he was a big photographer and videographer in the wonderful art department at Niskayuna High School. So I'm sorry that this has happened. And I have heard anecdotally about the wonderful way in which Supervisor Puccioni has tried to streamline communications, open up communications between departments with the police force. And I think that's wonderful. I think this is just the biggest mistake ever. There's a maxim in public relations that you have to tell people a minimum of 6 times when you're making a change, even a small change. Nobody got that. Oh, there was an article in the paper back in July. Some people were supposed to get a postcard. I don't think I got that. Certainly not 6. There were not 6 notifications that all hell will break loose on your March water bill. Okay. I watched the presentation by the controller, and I really appreciate the controller. I don't know if She is here. Really appreciate the controller trying to explain something that's so difficult. But I had so many why questions at the end of that presentation. This is a little tiny town of 23,000 people. Why do we have 2 sewer districts? Why? Why do we have that? Why was the minimum usage number of 9,000 something gallons chosen? She said she looked on the internet. Really? Is that how we decide stuff? And is that based on an average family of 4 in this town? In my neighborhood, there's a lot of families of 5 and 6. There are also seniors who are alone, one person living in the house. I was stoked about this year's water bill because that son I mentioned finally moved out. And so nobody was going to be taking 2 showers a day, and I wasn't going to have to run the dishwasher every day. I was stoked about how my water bill was going to be better, but it wasn't. The discrepancy between Sewer District 1 and Sewer District 6, although it says that you can find this map on the town website, I couldn't find it. Couldn't find the map, okay? Why did that discrepancy happen? Who allowed it to happen? Which administration allowed that to go forward? And why was this the solution to it? Okay. Water is a precious resource on this planet. Climate change is a real threat. But we live in a region where water is plentiful. We do not face the situation of the Southwest of the United States that they're facing already right now. So I have questions about, how the minimum usage number was determined. I really love the woman on Nextdoor who said, why wasn't this titrated? If you knew that some people were going to get a $900 or a $1,600 or $600 or whatever bill, and it was going to cause distress, why wasn't, if it had to be done this way, and I remain unconvinced that it had to be done this way, then why wasn't it titrated over a number of years? And I mean, I am joking, but let's suppose this discrepancy was discovered and someone said, how we're going to make up for this discrepancy? We're going to cut all of your little tiny salaries for the next 6 years until we fix it. You wouldn't like that. So this has broken my heart to see something which was supposed to be corrective go so south. And I'm sorry for all of you for the complaints that you're hearing, and I'm sorry for all of you for the real pain that you're feeling economically. We have to do better. So let's figure out, I agree with my seatmate there, let's correct this and figure out a better way going forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ruth Ann Kopcha. I live on Morrow Avenue. I'm not going to complain about the water bill or the sewer bill. I just have maybe a question, maybe, I don't know. I know that senior citizens in New York State they can apply for the STAR, I think it's called the STAR program, where they get a deduction in their taxes. Is there any possibility that maybe the senior citizens in the community that can't pay this water bill, is there a way for them to apply for a deduction? I'm willing to pay another $200 a year if it'll help somebody. I have a neighbor that lives 4 doors down from me that went all winter long without heat because she didn't have the money to fix her furnace. And now she's just her and her dog. And now she has a $500 water bill that she can't pay. And I feel bad. Not for me, I feel bad for her. If there's a way that we as a community can help people that need help, I think we love each other as a community. We're neighbors. We should want to help them. And, if you need to add money to my tax bill a little bit or my water bill to help somebody that can't do this, I'm more than happy to do that. So that's my comment for the day. And I have one other little tiny thing that's not even based on the water. You guys have a summer program for kids to work in the community, adult teenagers, 15-year-old boys, before I have to kick them out of the house? Because he's always asking for an allowance and it's increasing every single month, and I'd like him to get a job. So if somebody can, give me some information on maybe getting him out of the house. And he does know how to push a lawnmower. So I've taught him that. So if we could work on that, I'd really appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. In regards to the bids that come in, I heard numbers. I don't know what they were pertaining to, like the difference of set $9,700 to $20,000. I just want to know, are we settling on a lower amount for something, or are we figuring out what the difference was? Should we have paid the $20,000 for something better or more efficient? Are we going for the lowest dollar, or are we actually understanding the difference of? Because there's a lot of weird things going on in the industry. People are gouging. They're just saying no with the price. I get it. I just want to make sure that we're not holding your hands restrictive to the almighty dollar to be as minimalistic as possible. If we're stepping over dollars to pick up nickels, it's not good. So I just want to know why there's such a discrepancy. That's all.
Are there any other residents who'd like to come to the podium and speak?
I don't want to go to the podium, but I'm just going to say, I didn't realize that water was going to be like liquid gold. But I would like to see this unit in a good light, not in a bad light. So hopefully this will be fixed. It's not nice hearing about your town being talked about in a very bad way.
Well, thank you so much for all of your comments. I think I'll take a few moments to try to answer a few questions that I may be able to answer currently. One question that was repeated a couple of times was, why do we have two different sewer districts? And I can't give you the exact history, but I'm sure our water and sewer department head could. Would you like to?
So sewer district number 1 is comprised of the neighborhoods that traditionally directed their sewage towards the city of Schenectady. It was a separate system that predated the public sewers on most of Niskayuna. There is no treatment plant within the town that takes this water. It goes into the city of Schenectady system. We are charged by the city of Schenectady for the treatment of that water. They have a different rate structure for how we pay for that. And that's why there's a separate budget, because only the homes in sewer district 1 flow to the city. And we don't charge the homes in sewer district 6 for that cost. Sewer district 6 was the newer portions of the town, for the most part, that drain to our sanitary sewer treatment plant on Whitmire Drive. It's a town sewer plant. We have our own budget. We have our own staff, and we treat our own sewage. We have our own permit with New York State DEC. It's a separate budget for that type of work. It goes as far as when I purchase a vehicle for shared use between the different districts, we have to charge a portion of that vehicle to each district. So it has very specific funding lines, and that's why there's a discrepancy on what the cost is to fund the sewer for sewer 1 versus sewer 6. I don't know where 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 went, but we have 1 and 6. I think it has something to do with consolidation that took place decades ago. But everything in sewer 1 goes to the city of Schenectady, and we have to pay as a town a bill to the city. And that's what the rates are based upon, of how much it costs, so the town can cover the cost to the city. We don't make money on what we take in as revenue. Most of it goes right back to the city.
Matt, could you just do a little explaining about the water, drinkable water, and how we produce some, we get some from the city? Can you just
Okay.
explain that to residents also?
So the water's a little bit different, even though we have a source on Lock 7 Road, our own well field and water plant. We also purchase water from the city of Schenectady, but it all goes into one combined system. So it's a consolidated water district. That's why there's only one water fee that's the same, that's for every property that's served by water in the town. The sewer 6 and sewer 1 are completely separate, where the water system, even though we have a source from the city and the source from our own wells, it's combined. That's what the difference is. It's consolidated water district 1. And for the most part, sewer 1 is everything to the west of Balltown Road, and then some of the areas to the south of Route 5, and also the Country Club area as well. Any other questions?
I was going to have him speak to some of your questions about how the minimum usage was determined and the rate.
Can I just ask one question? You don't have to answer now, but could you or somebody quantify for us how many residents and businesses make up District 1 versus District 6, so we have a percentage or a number?
I could provide that. Yep. Do you have information?
Yeah.
Did you just sign up?
I didn't, because I only asked.
Okay.
Just when you started.
After we're done, I'll give you my card.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're also going to allow people to stick around afterwards if they want to have further questions and discussion. So, yeah.
Everything that's taking place here is being recorded. If you're not speaking into a microphone, it won't pick up. So if I can just summarize, the resident asked the town to quantify the number of residents and commercial properties that encompass each of the 2 sewer districts.
Okay.
There were also several questions about wanting further clarification about debt service and how was minimum usage determined. And I would ask, would you mind coming up, Beth, for a moment or two and maybe speaking to that?
Can I add one thing before I go back? There have been some discussions about high consumption or high water usage on the bills. If you have any questions about how much you've consumed, and if it seems out of the ordinary, call the number or sign up on the form. We can come out and we can download data off of the meters, and it can tell us exactly how much water you're using, if there's a leak, if there's a question about how much you're actually using. We can get all that information off of the meters up to 90 days. And that's one of the benefits of the digital readers that we have now on the meters.
And also the data, we have consumption usage
Yes.
for bills up to 10 years,
At least.
at least.
So if you call that number that's on there, the water billing clerk can look up your history and can tell you whether or not that seems like a legitimate or realistic consumption that you're seeing on the bill. Because when I see bills for $600, to me that it's leaning towards consumption issues. So I'd like to try to delve into that a little bit. And then we're always, I don't mind taking my entire day talking to people. So come on up to upstairs, and between 9 and 5, we're here and we can answer questions. And I think from this whole process, the one-on-one has been the most useful, because we can show people on their bills, we can look in the accounts, we can see what we have seen in the past for the property, and try to give some answers. Anything else?
Well, not yet.
Okay.
but-
Don't go far. All right, there were a couple of questions, and I apologize. Which would you like me to answer first?
I think, Joseph on Fruman, I didn't write down your last name, but you had 3 points that I think were relevant to address this evening. And it was the rate design. How was the rate determined? Because there was a change in the residential price, the change in minimum usage, as well as the change in fee per $1,000.
Right. So this is a good plug to put in for the initial presentation we did, because this was all addressed in that. What I tried to make as user-friendly detail as I could, but I can get into that a lot more extensively. And I have lots and lots of spreadsheets I can work through if anybody wants that level of detail. But what we did is we went and pulled all the data for the systems, each system individually. We went back for 12 years. And we analyzed the throughput of each system. So, and then we looked at that over 12 years, the throughput. We compared dry and wet years, and we looked at that compared to the costs for each of those 12 years. So there was a very large meta-analysis of each one of the systems. And then to actually set the minimum rate, we did actually look at how many minimum users we had and what they tended to use in terms of amounts. That's how we came to the amounts we ended up using as the minimum, and we needed that to cover roughly 1/3 of the cost of running the system, with the remainder of the cost to run each system being determined by those rates per thousand. So there were multiple factors that were all being adjusted. The 3 factors, he was correct in that. There was a little bit of confusion, I think, in what he was discussing, but I'd be happy to walk him through that. I did notice something, and I didn't write it down. I wasn't taking notes, but that wasn't quite the way we had addressed it. So 1/3 of the cost was to have a base that gave us the minimums. Those minimums were looked at in terms of both the cost of running the system and what we were seeing in throughput, but also we did look through how many minimum users we had, and we were trying to not have a significant impact on people who were minimum users and having that change dramatically. So all those things were considered and tried to balance as we were working through what that, both the gallon minimum would be, but also the amount monetarily of that minimum as compared to then what those overage rates would be. And we ran it multiple calculations, bracketing wet years, dry years, trying to average that out so we could consistently reproduce that. And what was the next question?
Debt service.
Debt service. I don't know what Linda's point was.
That when you are below that minimum.
Okay. No, that's not how it works at all. The minimum is you pay that. So for the water, that I think that's the 78. It's either the 78 or 79. I don't have my notes in front of me, but that is up to that minimum amount of gallons. You only pay that much up to that amount of gallons. So that's basically the initial cost to be part of. So for water, part of the system, so that the water can come to your house to cover that initial connection usage, availability, as well as the fire suppression that goes with that. That's what that initial fee is. Then once you get over that number of gallons, then the rate gets applied. That's why when we did that math problem, we subtracted out the minimum to see what the remainder was. It's that remainder after the minimum that the rate actually applies to. So that's where we kind of, yeah, and it's a good question because it's not done that way in other utilities necessarily. Right. So that, correct. Yes, and that covers, and that was calculated to cover that first third of the cost of running the system.
So for the
yes.
record, Tom Marcucci.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right.
2 C's and 1 I to end it.
All right, and sorry. So, and what was the next?
Debt service.
Debt service. Okay, so debt service. Debt service is the bonding that has been done over time to do major capital repairs to the system. So the reason why I say Sewer 6 has such a high debt service as compared to, say, Sewer 1 or the water system is there was this huge, massive upgrade to the plant a few years ago that I'm sure everybody's aware of to make our plant eventually, God willing, be net zero, but also be allowed to take in additional sources of revenue in terms of you've heard, I'm sure if you listen to board meetings, as we're adding contracts to be able to take in what they call fogs and different things that get processed through the plant so that we can then eventually have a plant that not only is net zero, but also can cover revenue. Hopeful eventually that someday that revenue will cover the cost of the debt service that was incurred to do those upgrades to the plant. That has not been realized yet, although we're starting to move down that road. If you had listened to budget hearings, you would have seen that we've adjusted that revenue line significantly to make it more realistic, to show what we actually are getting in and slowly build that so it's a more realistic budget line. So debt service is significant for sewer 6. It's much less so for either sewer 1 or the water system, because those are the bonds that have been taking over the years against those different systems as they were developed. So that is the port that goes on the tax bill. That should decrease slightly every year as we slowly pay things off, much like your mortgage does. The operations and maintenance costs are what are factored into the actual utility bill costs that you see on your water and sewer utility bill, that are broken out with that formula that we just talked about, how we got there. Okay, question 3.
Nope, I think
Okay, was there another one, or? I thought you had
there
said.
is, but there's a question I'll take.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't think you actually answered the question of how you arrived at the minimum amount of 9,000, 9,200. A couple of years ago, it was 25,000 was the minimum. Then it's gone to 21, now 14, now down to 9.
Right, and that's where I said we looked at the throughput. And when we were looking,
Throughput means
the total system throughput, so whether it was water or sewer, we can look at production from the water plants and what we get from the city. We can look at what the sewer plants accept through. So it's a little different depending on the system, what the throughput is. And what we did is look at that throughput and it was a combination of throughput plus costs, because the base number has to cover that first third of the cost of running the system. And that was done in conjunction with looking at how many minimum users we had and where they fell. So I would literally have to show you multiple spreadsheets to show you. I'd be happy to. If you want to come to my office, I can do spreadsheets all day with you. I think you'd find it very interesting if this is an area you've worked in.
Well, again, here's the thing. My wife and I, we're the only ones in the house. Okay, we used about 20,000. We're pretty consistent, 18, 19, 20. And you're telling us we need to use half as much water as we're using now, or we're going to get hit as overage. Okay?
I think
So, and again, this is,
the heartburn about here is that you're talking about throughputs, but you have to actually look at the usage numbers on an individual basis, and you can add that up easy enough through your database, and you could quantify across this town how many people were using
We did.
under 25, under 21.
We did.
So if you looked at that and you also made a change back in 2019, over 4 years, it's been a 71% decrease in this minimum usage level. So you have to be able to quantify the number of households that are impacted by driving that number that far, and then compounding that by raising the rate. This is the problem with this rate design and trying to implement it all at one time.
It's-
You're doing 3 different inputs.
it's actually not a problem with the rate design. It's very intentional about the rate design. And I think that's the
Well,
difference.
then you should just tell the people in this room and everyone else that you intentionally raised everybody's bill to these astronomical rates intentionally, because that's
So
exactly what's happening.
again, I would recommend that you go back and revisit the initial presentation, because this was all laid out very clearly there and step by step. There was an intention and there was a reason why. The lady who was asking about the whys, a lot of those are mentioned in there. We had to cut a lot out because it's already nearly 20 minutes, and trying to get people to listen to anything in this current modern day beyond about 3 minutes is a challenge. 20 was quite a challenge. If anybody would like to come up to my office and ask any questions about why something was done, I can talk all day about water and sewer rates. It is something near and dear to my heart. There was very intentional analysis done. It was all done with a lot of thought and process, and I have backup documentation for all of it that I would happily share with anyone who's interested.
I'm not doubting the numbers, but let me just ask one question, final question. Did you consider phasing this in over 3 to 5 years instead of implementing it in this billing cycle?
And so you'll see from the billing that it actually was implemented over a 2-year period of moving everything but the debt service off of the property tax bill and then slowly phasing in the actual billing. There was a gap actually for people who were In sewer one, it looks like a gap because of the lag with meter reading. So it almost looks like they didn't pay something. They did. Eventually it catches up, but because of the lag of reading and then billing, previously when everything had been pushed onto their tax bill, it was all paid up front. So we had to wait to go through the period that would have covered before we started putting on the rate. So when you go through it line by line, and anybody who wants to come in with their 2022, 23, and 24 property tax bills, water and sewer bills, I can show you exactly how it was done and how much you paid each year and how it actually was phased in. I think that currently in the times we've been in recently with a lot costs of a lot of things going up, people didn't realize when they were paying several $100s less on their tax bill. And so because everything else was so expensive. And so when you suddenly see it on your utility bill, even though it's off your tax bill, you don't necessarily feel that in your pocketbook. And I do understand that because I live here and I pay these too. So it was done intentionally, it was done carefully, and it was done in a measured fashion. I think that it's hard for people to always know what's going on. I think that for those of us who try very hard to communicate things out, we don't always get as much information out to people as we wish we could. And so I think that's a big part of this.
Oh, the other question that a resident asked was what was the legal standing for making this change?
So
Linda Shannon.
Okay, so
asked
legally,
that.
we are only supposed to put debt service for the utilities on the tax bill. We are not supposed to put operations and maintenance costs for utilities on tax bills.
And when you say, is that per what code?
It's a town law. It's up in my office. I can bring it down. It hasn't changed much since about 1968. I can pull up the reference for you, but I don't have it on the top of my head.
So
Excuse me, so why was that sewer cost in our tax bill?
I can't speak to what happened before I got here. I do not know.
Who knows?
So that would be a really good segue. That would be a really good segue into in 2022 when I took office. It was like an onion, and I'm pulling back layers and discovering issues that had not been addressed or resolved. When the superintendent of water and sewer, Matt Yetto, and the town comptroller, Beth Greenwood, brought this issue to my attention, I'm going to be honest, I did not want to deal with this or take it on. I saw 5 years of a water system being in the red. 2018, $550,000 in the red. $250,000 in the red another year. Another $250,000 in the red. This is not what I thought I was signing up for when I ran for office. I'm going to get to you, Brent, because I love your story. Okay, babe? I'm going to get to you. I didn't want to deal with it. I really pushed my heels in and said, no, can we not? I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this right now. I don't want to deal with this here. But the train had already left the station. And I also, despite not wanting to deal with it, take on challenges. It's probably why I ended up in this crazy seat in the first place. I asked Beth to run the best analyses possible. They worked for 8 months at least on this. Communication. We really tried hard to do the best we could. I don't have a communications department like the school district. I got a letter today stating, why don't you send out brochures to inform the public? I would love to do that. I don't have a budget item. I don't have a line item in my budget to pay for mailers like the school district. I would love to put that in the budget so I could send a quarterly newsletter to every resident by mail. That costs tens of thousands of dollars. Yes, it does. It costs money. I would love to put that in the budget for the future so that we could have communications like this. I do have one communications person on my staff. It's a part-time position. And I had to, luckily, get that person on staff by halving the salary of my confidential secretary. Her salary is normally $55,000, and we cut it in half to pay for a communications professional. So we are trying to do as much as we can with as little as we can so we don't raise the taxes. And we recognize we should have put a letter in the billing to help explain. We could have done, I wish, I'm a teacher. In hindsight, I'm like, I could have done an online video, quick 3 to 5 minute video with bills and explaining and showing. In hindsight, I wish I did. Now, Brent, your story touched me, okay? I'm going to tell everybody right here. I did not grow up with much. I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school. I'm the first to go to college and get a bachelor's degree. I'm the first to get an advanced degree. 3 years of my life, we were unhoused, homeless from the 3rd grade to the 6th grade. We bumped around to motel to motel. I couldn't even tell you where I lived. I didn't get my own room until I went to college and had a single dorm room. That was the first time I'd had my own room. When my mother finally got to the point she was cutting her medicine in half, I said, Mom, you can't live like this. You have to come live with me. And she lived with us for 3 years and said, I can't do this cold. Then she went to go live with my sister. My dad lived with my sister until he died. My mom will do the same because we didn't grow up with much. My mom doesn't have a pension to live on. My mom didn't have her own house to live in. So she lives with my sister. And before that, she lived with me because she was on a fixed income. She's poor. My brother is poor working class. He's a painter. He's not a high income person. And I don't really consider myself a high income person because the money that I make, I also use to help my mother and to help my brother and to help out my family members. So I understand struggle and I understand month to month. I understand having to budget and help people like my own family members. So my heart is there with you. And we will continue to look at ways to help. Ruth Ann, who came here and said, how can I help? That's how our community is. I've got to the left of me the woman who created Niski Now, Nutrition on Weekends, to bring food to children who are economically disadvantaged and don't have food on the weekends. Like the people on this board, we ran for office because we have this love for our community and a sense of service. So I'm trying the best that I can with the resources I have, and I will continue to try to do better. That's what I can promise you. Okay?
I just have a quick question. Out of respect for the residents, why were we not sent a letter, which I know you've mentioned months ago, leading up to this?
Yep.
So we were not all caught off guard on Friday.
That is,
which I'm sure most of all,
Yep.
and I have a
Sticker
$900
shock.
bill.
Yep.
My bill was $400 and now it's $900.
and the sticker shock is, and I do wish, I love the person who mentioned, I'm in communications. You need to hear the message 6 times. Like, I did not know that. And in hindsight, we sent the postcard in January of 2023, and some didn't get it, but it was sent.
But in reality, the postcard that's not going to mean anything to
Right.
anybody. I mean, it was just a postcard. You get it, you look at it, oh, something's going to happen with the water bill.
Multiple
We totally
letters.
get it. That didn't even
Yes.
scratch the surface.
So we will continue to work to improve communications. We will meet with everyone who has questions. At this time, I'm going to close the meeting, the official meeting. You may stick around, ask questions, schedule times to visit and discuss. And I'm going to close the meeting and then we'll have follow-up conversations, okay? Do you want to come up to the podium?
Good evening. I'm Dennis Romero. I live on Ruffner Road. It's my understanding that I hear a lot about the public service that you all do. Your public service has better benefits than many jobs that people make 40 hours a week. And if you, with how you describe your story, that's touching. And I think many folks could relate to that. But there's something more than just public service that you do. The very next line of public service is public trust. And you have failed the community in being truthful, trustful. Those are the things that make a community strong when they have faith in their local government. There has to be, you talk about closing the meeting in order to then have one-on-one conversations. We can have conversations until the end of time. That's not the solution that we're looking for. I'm still waiting to hear what is the solution to this place that we find ourselves. There has to be a better solution than simply just ignoring and having more conversations. So I would like to hear what are the next steps? What are we going to do to rectify this current issue? Thank you.
As I've already shared, for Sewer District 1, we are resending the bills with a letter of explanation. We are extending the due date. At this time, I don't see the rates being changed. They were voted on unanimously. They passed unanimously. And when we talk about conversation, and we can have absolutely a follow-up to the questions.
Do you believe that armed with more information, you talk about the fact that, you're doing as best you can, and I fully understand that too. I know it's difficult, but having heard the residents here speak, and you know that there is an alternative here. And an alternative is not to execute this type of a rate design in one fell swoop in one billing cycle or two. Even if you decide that you ultimately want to go with the same inputs that you're using today, if you did a step increase over the next 5 years, so you went from 307 to 315 to 335 to 385 to 405, you would be gaining revenue each and every billing cycle, and you would be closing the gaps between the two districts, and you would be moving yourself in a forward direction and not causing all this ire with the town for what has happened with this rate design change. It's catastrophic, and you can clearly see that. The people in the town are telling you as much.
We
There is no
can
answer.
we can see that, and the problem has been identified. I know the intent of this board was not to have people's bills increase $400 to $600. The intent of this board was to try to get the sewer districts in line. We thought there might be an increase of $50 or $60 over the course of the year. If that has not happened, then we need to turn back the clock and figure out how to fix that. So we are going to try to fix that once we identify the problem. If that actually has happened, we have to fix it. It's a must. So just have a little bit of patience. I am sorry that this happened. I'm sure the rest of the town board is sorry it happened. We'll do our best to fix it.
With all the work that everyone's done, I know everyone's done probably spent a lot of time running numbers and everything. No, I don't think anyone here is probably at the level of an actuary. Did anybody ever think about bringing an actuary in, someone who's professional in running numbers and running all these scenarios and showing the impact in maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different scenarios and showing you what the impact's going to be to your town base?
That's a great idea. And I think a next public hearing discussion about this, we can have the town comptroller go through all of her analyses publicly and look at bringing in an actuary if that is the best next step.
Well, I think it goes back to the point, though, we're still not addressing the problem we are facing right now, the amount of money that we have to pay. The responses you're saying that you're going to extend the bill to June 30th doesn't do a lot of people here much good in 1 month. This is a surprise. This is a big impact to taxpayers. We're not expecting all of a sudden a $1,000 bill out of nowhere. And this is only this time. This is a 6-month bill. In 6 months, we're all going to get another hike like this. This is not addressing as this gentleman really pointed out,
Okay. We're getting out of, this is moving into not a productive conversation. I'm going to close this meeting officially. Thank you. That's all we have for the town board meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.